to ask our next guest what he thinks about the state of our economy and all these headlines I just brought up. Chief economist, global strategist, founder, Schiff Gold. Our buddy Peter Schiff back on the program. Peter, how about it? $50 an hour federal wage. What do you think? You're a global strategist and a chief economist. Would I be paying about $27.50 or $30 for that Big Mac meal?
Well, first of all, at the rate they're creating inflation, I think that a lady's going to get her wish, because I think pretty soon the minimum wage is going to have to be $50 an hour for it to be equal to $7.25. Because prices are going up. When I read that report about the exemption for bakeries in California,
right,
my first thought was, well, why doesn't McDonald's just start baking their buns?
Right, that's what I said.
I think the law says that in order to qualify for the exemption, you had to have been baking bread last year. So they already figured that companies would try to get around it by starting to bake. So it purely is there to protect Panera Bread, which shows you, this whole thing is political. And Newsom obviously knows that this is not good for workers. Otherwise, it would apply to Panera Bread as well. So it's all political. It's trying to get votes. It's the labor unions that are behind this because it prices a lot of people out of jobs. It's terrible economic policy. But of course, on a national level, you're talking about the debt. The budget deficit now is gone, or national debt is above $34.4 trillion. We've added $400 billion in the last 2 months. That's $200 billion a month. I remember when $200 billion was a big deficit to run for an entire year. Now we're racking them up every month. That's a $200 billion inflation tax that everybody has to pay. We're not getting government for free. Yikes. There's no free lunch, and we're paying for it with higher prices.
No kidding, we are. The spending bill, the continued resolution to just kick the can down the road. With that news, I got to imagine the markets didn't fare well, and now we're looking at them in late March, having to vote again. By all accords, they're going to continue this budget. And until you see massive cuts to the tunes of, I would think, billions, right? None of this will begin to come down, because everybody's going to project that inflation will stay high as long as this Congress and these people in D.C. continue just to print and spend money we don't have.
Well, the markets still don't realize that inflation is not only going to stay high, it's going to go higher. They still expect inflation to come down just because the Fed raised rates to 5%. That's not going to do it, because the whole time the Fed was supposedly fighting inflation, the government was creating it. We have an inflationary fiscal policy that offset whatever Powell did, plus he didn't raise rates enough because he didn't slow down credit growth. Credit is at an all-time record high. Not only is the government borrowing record amounts of money, but households are in debt. They have record credit card debt, and they're spending money, but they're spending it on food. They're spending it on rent. They're spending it on insurance. That's why durable goods are coming down, because after you spend all this money on the necessities, you've got nothing left over for anything else. So the spending continues, and the inflation is going to continue. And when the market starts pricing that in, look out.
And durable goods, people aren't buying. I saw an example, a new refrigerator. If it's on the fritz, they can't afford it. They're going to go get a used one off Craigslist, right?
Because
or a washer or dryer from the garage sale.
Because it's so expensive to fill up the refrigerator. There was a CEO of Kellogg's was on television. He was happy that they're selling more cereal because he said people are having cereal for dinner because that's all they can afford. And a lot of them are skipping breakfast because they can't even afford that. So they have lunch, and then for dinner, they have breakfast.
Wow. Peter, one of these days when you come on this program, we are going to have good news about this economy. The only thing I will say in close is it will probably take until next year with a regime change and then immediate policy change when it comes to energy. And then I think, and I hope and I pray that I will see you on this set, even though we'll have much more to talk about over the next 9 months. But in February timeframe, I'm guessing, you're going to have some good news for us. Until then, everybody better just buckle up. Peter, thank you, man. Have a good weekend.
Take care.
Yep.
Have a good weekend.